I will start this video by asking a very simple question. What gives a piece of art its value? Why is the Mona Lisa a world-famous masterpiece worth millions, while some stunning paintings are only worth $5 or $50 on the local market? Would it be the skills required, maybe? Well, this would be hard to defend, as countless expensive pieces of art don't always require difficult skills. And when we analyze the music industry, for example, the highest paid artists are rarely the virtuosos. So, would it be the ingenuity behind it, or the innovative nature and originality of a piece? We have many examples of highly valued pieces which are neither genius nor really innovative. So, why is it based on? And who decides what has value and what doesn't? In this video, we will reply to this question, but most importantly, we will discuss why it matters now more than ever. As we will see that by answering this very simple question, we will progressively go deeper and deeper in the philosophy of it and understand why we currently live in a very dangerous time. So let's dig into it. I always found baffling that Van Gogh made next to no money with his paintings during his lifetime, but now, years after his death, they are worth an absolute fortune. And it is only one example of artists who were worth nothing until they did. El Greco is another great example of artist disregarded during his lifetime and later recognized as a pioneer of Cubism. In literature, we can think of Kafka, who only became famous for his work after his death and is now recognized as one of the most important writers of this century. So, through time, the art doesn't change, but its value can dramatically change. I tried to understand this phenomenon for many years, and lately I got a comment on this channel asking, what gives art its value anyway? And it got me thinking, as I tried to answer the question, and I realized that there were two very different types of answers I could give, depending on whose point of view I was answering from. The audience's point of view or the artist's point of view. Of course, from the audience's point of view, I think it's common knowledge that whatever gives a piece of art its value is its popularity. A bit like anything else, actually. Like, the more something is wanted and or rare, the more its financial value goes up. Now, when it comes to art, popularity or public appraisal can be gained in three main ways. One, by its accessibility. I will call this the easy access method. The goal is to reach as many people as possible, so a piece of art would need to speak to as many people as possible, either because it is about a relatable subject, so the message is easy access, or it should be an accessible genre and format. Something relatable, accessible to people without any education or training to the arts. Another way for a piece of art to gain popularity is its specialist appraisal, or what I would call the authority argument method. An art connoisseur, an historian, an art critique can dictate to the public what a masterpiece is and why. This will inevitably give value to the piece of art, which will then be amplified by its desirable value. And it is important to note that often, not always, these critiques are subjective, and they usually have to take a lot of political issues and fashionable taste into account. We can think of the painting liberty leading the people, for example, which was seen by the expert of the time as a gross painting, as it disturbed the power in place at the time, and it featured a representation of a woman which was deemed to be unfeminine and debauched. It was only decades later that it served and it was instrumentalized as a representation of the revolutionaries and the new Republic of France, serving the new power in place and considered as a true masterpiece. It is also important to note that this method, as we call it, is rarely controlled by the artists themselves. The last way is a bit of a wild one, and we call it the scandalous method. It consists in creating something so shocking that it becomes viral, even if it has sometimes no real meaning and no skills required. Although some pieces of art can be shocking, scandalous, and still meaningful, of course, I would mostly mention in here the ones that aren't, such as a banana scotched on a wall. Now, as an artist, limiting myself to the popularity of a piece being the only way for it to gain value didn't feel right, as it didn't match my personal experience and what I could witness within the artistic community when it comes to an artist finding value in their creation or even someone else's creation. I constantly find myself idolizing underrated musicians while not understanding why some of the most praised ones are so popular. Indeed, although the popularity of a piece can be flattering to the ego and obviously financially enriching the creator, it doesn't seem to have any link with the value that the artist holds to its creations. In fact, I think that most artists have experienced this. The most popular creation is rarely the one that they are the most proud of. I can think of Kurt Cobain, for example, who towards the end of his life hated playing Smell Like Teen Spirit, although this is the most successful song he wrote.
Disappointment about any of them that Smells Like Teen Spirit, that not turn out to be exactly what you thought about it.
Yeah. I mean, although it worked, I liked the video overall, but it wasn't what I pictured in my mind. When I come up with an idea for a video, I want it to be translated exactly how I see it in my mind, and it just wasn't that way. I mean, because I had meetings with Sam there, and I told him what I wanted, I drew pictures of it, and I walked in and it wasn't what I wanted, it looked like a Time Life commercial to me,
The same goes for Creep from Radiohead. The band has a weird relationship with the song and they don't necessarily see it as a positive thing that they are super and most proud of. The band Toto, for example, didn't think of featuring their song Africa on their album as they didn't believe it was good enough for it. Although it turned out to be their most successful song ever, generating them a lot of money every year in royalties.
Do you have any idea what it is about that one that meant that exploded in a way that other ones maybe didn't?
Ask anybody who's ever written a hit song. It's like if you knew how to do it, you'd do it every time. Some you're sure is going to be a hit and not. And like in the case of Africa, there's no way. Are you kidding me? Listen to these lyrics, We laugh about it now, but it's a wonderful laugh. And, it's been very good to us. And if that's what it takes to get everybody to dig the rest of it, that seems to be the case now.
Although it sometimes happens that the most successful piece of art from an artist is also the one that they are the most proud of, I actually think it is rarely the case. When you ask them with sincerity what piece of art they are the most proud of. So, what would give value to a piece of art to its creator? Well, I do believe that it is something like a breakthrough or an overcoming of initial skill, or in other words, growth. There is nothing that makes us prouder than to create something we never thought ourselves capable of, whether it is on a technical point of view or on the skills required, on the time and effort it took, or the vision that came from God knows where, or even simply overcoming the difficulties that led to the creation of said piece. In fact, I noticed that one thing that seems to be constantly present when we talk about growth is discomfort. Whether it is a mental one, or a physical one, or even a financial one, we seem to give value to something that wasn't easily acquired. So we also give value to something that took us pain, effort, and more generally speaking, discomfort for us to create. And this can be quite a large spectrum. It can be that piece of art that we created to overcome a mental crisis, grief, mental breakdown, a trauma. The artist would then give a mental charge to the creation and realize that without the pain endured, this piece of art would not be created. In a way, it is trying to turn a tiny bit of a tragedy into something beautiful or something we are proud of, and therefore turn it into something positive. It can also be this piece of art that took us years and years to finalize. This would then reflect the painfully slow process, the patience, the discipline, and the weight of the artist to see it finished. Then, of course, it can also be the skills, the research, the acquisition of new technique required in order to achieve this piece. The creation would then reflect the countless failures, the hours and hours of practice, and the relentless search for improvement and innovation. And this has no price tag. All of these examples reflect the growth of the artist, the overcoming of something, and all are driven and fueled by discomfort. Without discomfort, none of these pieces would exist. So I think it is safe to conclude that from the artist's point of view, the value of a piece of art is directly linked with the level of discomfort needed to create the piece. Which leads me to a more global question. What would be the correct pursuit for an artist when they create? The popularity and appraisal of their work, or the artist's value for their own creation? After all, by searching for the audience validation of your creation, this could lead you to fame and or wealth. Your art will also be consumed by more people, and well, isn't that the real goal of creating? Quentin Tarantino was once asked if he would carry on creating movies if there was no one left to enjoy them and watch them. To which he replied, no. Showing that to most creators and artists, if there is no audience to enjoy and consume our creations, we would simply stop creating. Underrated artists like the ones we mentioned earlier, Van Gogh and Kafka, on the other hand, kept creating even when no one enjoyed their creations during their lifetimes. So, does art need an audience validation in order to be relevant and worth creating? And does it make it greater when consumed at a bigger scale? Well, this is a question that is becoming more and more important as time goes by, because AI is destroying more and more artistic industries and therefore making it harder for artists to live from their art and to find their audience. It is also easier for people to cheat on an artistic level to gain the popularity and appraisal we described earlier. Easier, cheaper, and faster. So, should we carry on creating even when there is no one left to enjoy our creations? And I ask this question knowing that, of course, this is an extreme case scenario, and I believe that there will always be someone to enjoy our creations. But, well, then ask yourself this question. How many people need to appreciate and understand my creations for me to keep on creating them? 1, 2, 100, 1,000? Of course, we know that art is a way of communication. So I understand Tarantino when he says that he would stop creating if there was no one left on earth to watch his movies. Would there be any point in creating movies if there was no one left to watch them? But I also know that many artists would stop creating if their art was no longer popular enough. So then, is it really the goal of creating, the popularity of your creations? Because then, when does it start and when does it end? Knowing that if Van Gogh acted this way, we wouldn't be enjoying his paintings and the influence he had on many painters after him today. So this led me to another question. When we go back to the very first day we started creating as a kid, probably painting or drawing an abstract version of what we used to care about, such as our house or our parents. Why did we do it? What drew us to creating it then? The appraisal of our parents in front of our art? Or would we have made it anyway? And if so, why? To answer this question, we need to go one step further into the philosophical thinking of it. But before I get to my next point, please make sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps a small channel like this one. You got it. In order to sincerely answer this question, we should ask ourselves the big question, the one no one seems to have an obvious straight answer for. What is the goal in life? Although I believe there might be as many answers as humans on this earth, the usual replies always go down to happiness. Okay, so what would make you happier? Popularity or self-growth? Now we finally get to the point I wanted to discuss. We live in a society that is obsessed with comfort. Through our education, we have learned that we should seek security and comfort. The more comfort, the more successful and the happier you will be. So is what you are told. So we have learned to associate comfort with happiness. But is it a wise association to make? After reading the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which is another underrated masterpiece, by the way, we can see that Huxley understood our obsession with comfort and pleasure long ago already, and his description of the future isn't far off the reality we live in now. We live in an abundance of entertainment, quick pleasures, and a daily dose of dopamine. Whatever we do, we are in fact addicted to dopamine hits, which makes our society the most addicted of all ever to our phones, social media, online gaming, porn, etc. We totally normalize going for comfort food, procrastination, and overall pointless entertainment consumption, calling this a self-care day. Now, before you get triggered and jump into the comment section, hear me out on this. I am obviously not saying that entertainment, comfort food, and other quick sources of comfort and pleasure are all bad. But we should treat them like we treat fast food, as when we abuse of it, it has the same effect on our brain than on our bodies and shows a real toxic effect on us. Comfort can of course be seen more globally than this. It can consist of having a comfortable and lovely home, a secured and stable job, and a healthy and happy relationship. And this is when we need to acknowledge that comfort is a vital need, such as sleep, food, and water. We all need a minimum of it to function and to stay sane in this world. However, the misconception starts when we think that comfort is the source of happiness and that the more we have of it, the happier we get. It would be like saying that food and sleep alone are the sources of happiness, and the more we have of it, the happier we are. A vital need doesn't make you happy, it simply keeps you alive and sane. So, if not comfort, then what brings you real happiness? Well, before our society got obsessed with comfort and meaningless entertainment, we can see that in the most famous tales, both for kids and adults, we tell the story of a hero that has some kind of dream or mission and goes on a journey to fulfill this mission. And here is in fact the most common structure of all monomyths, in which we see our hero accepting the mission, learning from a mentor, meeting new friends and helpers, but also overcoming hardships and fighting enemies along the way. They usually think of giving up, but they never do, and they always persevere. Then, eventually, they succeed, going back home with what they call an elixir. This elixir represents this growth and shows that our hero is now a richer person, not financially, but spiritually. And we also learn that the ending was never really the most beautiful part of the story. It was the journey. All those tales are meant to inspire us to work towards a goal, learn, meet new people along the way, grow, and never give up despite the hardships. They are inspiring us to not fear discomfort, but embrace it with the right mindset. Of course, if I wanted to create a video on happiness and the meaning of life, this video would probably be much longer than it is now. I am well aware that what brings happiness in people's life can be complex and from various sources, such as making people around you happy and sharing moments and so on. But I am of course speaking only on the individual level of what we have under our own control on our personal life and what we do in our free time in order to build a better life for ourselves. So, keeping this in mind, isn't creating something we would be proud of the real goal here, instead of the popularity and appraisal of our work? Of course, it is always nice to feel understood and appreciated and loved, but I would associate this feeling with the pleasure of comfort, not the real source of controlled happiness in our life as we have just seen. We have been so conditioned and used to the capitalist system that we constantly associate fulfillment and happiness with wealth and popularity, when in fact, this has nothing to do with one another. Now, every coin has two sides, and the toxic side of what I have just explained is the never satisfied case. Many people will find themselves always wanting more and never really be satisfied with what they acquired and created. But what if this feeling was just a misinterpretation? What if we experience this craving feeling because deep down we are always in the search of more self-growth, and therefore we know that we should always aim higher wherever we are? We're just confused by this capitalist system, and we think it means we need more money, more power, more appraisal, and more love. whether or not these pursuits are leading us towards self-growth and personal fulfillment. The next mission is dictated by our ego in this case, instead of our personal search for growth. And we therefore direct this energy in the wrong mission. Now, this video isn't made to talk about the meaning of life, but in a world in which we get more and more obsessed with comfort, we seem to forget the essential need for discomfort in our lives and the importance of going out of our comfort zone and embrace effort and hardships if they lead towards self-growth in order to have a happy life. Our society is a very sick one, and it transforms us into obedient people addicted to comfort and security. And we're now making you believe that using AI to write your own thoughts will save you time. We are making you believe that AI music is just a cheaper and quicker version of the same thing, and that pleasing an algorithm will make you successful and therefore happier, and that creating isn't necessary anymore and is just a waste of time, energy, and money. Instead, we should optimize to create more income and with less effort. The recipe for happiness: optimize for profit, less effort, and avoid all sorts of discomfort. So, this video is mostly to ring the alarm bell on the most worrying disappearance of all, the disappearance of discomfort. Although everything in excess is dangerous, discomfort should not be feared and avoided as much as what our current society is making us believe. We should learn to wait again, to overcome our fears, and to dare going out of our comfort zone and learn new things. And most importantly, create for ourselves too. And I would even say mainly.
Now, I think what is going to happen in the future is the dictators will find, as the old saying goes, that you can do everything with bayonets except sit on them. But if you want to preserve your power indefinitely, you have to get the consent of the ruled. And this they will do, partly by drugs, as I foresaw in Brave New World, partly by these new techniques of propaganda. They will do it by bypassing the sort of rational side of man and appealing to his subconscious and his deeper emotions and his physiology even, and so making him actually love his slavery. I mean, I think this is the danger, that actually people may be in some ways happy under the new regime, but they will be happy in situations where they ought to be happy.